Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we are exploring the world of foraged flavors.
Oh, that sounds fascinating.
It is. Our guide is Forage for Flavor, a cookbook by Björn Olfenius.
I've heard of that book. The photos are incredible.
They really are. And what's amazing is how Olfenius, a chef originally from Berlin, now living in Sweden, takes foraging to a whole new level. It's not just about picking berries, he creates gourmet dishes with these wild ingredients.
It's like he's elevating those humble ingredients to something extraordinary.
Exactly. And what I find really interesting is his background as a visual artist. It shines through in his plating and presentation.
I can see that. Each dish is like a work of art, carefully composed and presented.
Right. And speaking of art, the book is structured around the four seasons, with recipes showcasing the unique ingredients you can forage in each season.
I like that idea. It really connects the food to the natural world.
It does. So let's start with spring, a season of renewal, fresh flavors, and that's reflected in Olfenius's recipes. For example, he has a dish that combines weeds and smelt.
Weeds, I wouldn't think of those as gourmet ingredients.
Right. But Olfenius uses hairy bittercress, which has this peppery kick to it.
Interesting. So he's not just using any old weeds.
No. He's carefully selecting them for their unique flavors. He knows what he's doing.
It sounds like he has a deep understanding of the nuances of each ingredient.
He does. And it's not just about the ingredients themselves, it's also about the techniques he uses. For example, he has a recipe for pickled prime vegetables in the spring section. Pretty simple ingredients, carrots, onions, and the like. But he emphasizes letting them sit in the brine for at least 8 hours, sometimes even overnight.
That's a great reminder that sometimes the simplest techniques, when done with patience, can yield incredible results, and pickling is a great way to preserve those spring flavors.
Exactly. And speaking of preserving flavors, the nettle pasta recipe sounds pretty involved. You're blanching fresh nettles, making the pasta from scratch, and then there's a whole lamb filling.
Wow, that sounds like a labor of love.
It does. But the result seems worth it.
I can imagine. The combination of the earthy nettles with the rich lamb must be incredible.
Now, the chickweed bavaroise has me intrigued. Duck eggs cooked at a precise temperature, dehydrated kefir for texture.
That sounds really interesting.
I know. What's the thought process behind those choices?
Well, Olfenius is all about balancing those complex flavors and textures. Duck eggs, they have a richer flavor than chicken eggs, and they create a silkier texture in the bavaroise. And the dehydrated kefir, that adds a contrasting crunch and a slightly tangy note.
So it's not just about using unique ingredients, it's about using them in a way that highlights their best qualities.
Precisely. He creates this harmony in each dish.
Okay, let's move on to summer, where Olfenius embraces the abundance of flavors with berries, meadowsweet, and crayfish. Oh, and get this, there's a bird cherry flower and ramson combo.
Now, ramsons, those are a type of wild garlic, right?
Yes, and they have a very pungent, almost spicy flavor.
I can see how that might clash with the delicate floral notes of the bird cherry flower.
You would think so, but Olfenius somehow makes it work.
He must have a knack for balancing those contrasting flavors.
He does. And there's this simple cheese recipe in the summer section, made with just milk, cream, and vinegar. But the book suggests it can be used in all sorts of dishes.
That versatility is appealing, especially for home cooks who might be intimidated by foraging.
Right. You can take these basic recipes and adapt them to your own needs and preferences.
It's about empowering people to explore and experiment with those ingredients.
Speaking of experimentation, there's a wild chamomile oil recipe. It sounds like it could add a unique touch to any dish.
And it's another example of how he elevates those simple ingredients through his technique. He uses a heavy blender to extract the chamomile flavor and heats the oil to a specific temperature for optimal infusion.
And then there's the blueberry ham. I mean, who would think of curing pork with blueberries?
That's what I love about Olfenius. He's not afraid to think outside the box.
Exactly. Plus, that curing and drying process, it intensifies those flavors, creating something truly unique.
So it's that combination of innovation and tradition that makes his food so special.
Absolutely. And speaking of special, autumn brings us into the world of richer, more earthy flavors with mushrooms and wild game. There's this penny bun and venison recipe that uses a fermented penny bun reduction.
Fermented. That sounds interesting.
I know. What's the purpose of fermenting the mushrooms?
Well, fermentation adds this depth and complexity of flavor that you wouldn't get with fresh mushrooms. It also speaks to his interest in those traditional preservation techniques.
I'm noticing a pattern here. Olfenius seems to be drawn to those time-consuming, almost ancient methods of preparing food.
Yes. He's not about quick and easy recipes. He's about taking the time to extract the essence of each ingredient.
And there's a kale pancake recipe in the autumn section that uses milk powder and bicarbonate, not your typical pancake ingredients.
Right. It's another example of how he takes familiar ingredients and uses them in unexpected ways.
And the milk powder and bicarbonate, they create a lighter, fluffier texture.
So he's playing with both flavor and texture to create a more interesting dish.
Exactly. And then there's the crowberry pickled radish. Crowberries are quite tart.
I imagine that plays well against the crunchy radish.
Yes, it's all about that balance of flavors.
And finally, there's a mousse dish that seems to embrace those rich autumnal flavors. It uses rutabaga puree and is smoked with juniper chips.
Olfenius really loves that smoky, earthy depth.
He does. And the use of rutabaga shows his commitment to showcasing the diversity of ingredients available in the Nordic region.
It's like he's encouraging us to look beyond the supermarket shelves and rediscover those forgotten flavors.
Exactly. And that brings us to winter.
The final season in the book, where Olfenius features ingredients like cranberries, spruce, and even reindeer.
Winter might seem like a time when nature is dormant, but he finds a way to highlight the beauty of those hardy ingredients.
Like the recipe for pigweed, cod, and spruce. It sounds surprisingly light and refreshing for a winter dish.
It does, and it's another great example of how he plays with those contrasts. The delicate cod, the crunch of the puffed pigweed seeds, and the refreshing acidity of the buttermilk infused with spruce oil. It's a symphony of flavors and textures.
Then there's this smoked reindeer dish that sounds incredibly elaborate. Chokeberry jam, buttermilk gel, and crispy leek coating.
It sounds fit for a king.
It does. It's a testament to his meticulous attention to detail.
And then there's this wood sorrel and apple recipe. It highlights the flavors of malt and wood sorrel, a combination I wouldn't have thought of.
That's the beauty of his cooking. He constantly challenges our preconceptions of what flavors go together.
And the last dessert recipe, a showstopper, malt cone, brown cheese crémeau, tarragon sponge.
I'm getting overwhelmed just thinking about it.
It's definitely not a recipe for the faint of heart.
So for our listener, Forage for Flavor is more than just a cookbook.
It's a call to adventure.
An invitation to explore a whole new world of flavors.
And to reconnect with nature in a meaningful way.
Maybe this deep dive has sparked something for you. Maybe you're feeling inspired to try foraging yourself.
We hope so. But remember, do your research.
Be responsible.
And most importantly, have fun. If you need a guide on this adventure, Olfenius's book is the perfect place to start.
Happy foraging, everyone. And thanks for joining us on this culinary journey through Forage for Flavor. Until next time.